Chapter 12. Justice. "I love you," Kevin said to Mary as she entered their home after spending the last few hours at the Rockbrook City police station. Several times a day, Mary would give him little glances, say certain things, or just have an expression that made him want to let her know how he felt. This time, it was how passionate she was about getting justice for the hit-and-run victim. "Love you too, Kevin. Are you going to work now?" she replied. Looking at the clock and thinking about the projects he was currently working on, he saw no point in starting work this late in the day when he could spend the time with Mary. "No, how about we go get something to eat?" After a second of thought, Mary replied, "I don't really feel like going anywhere. How about we sit and watch the new show we started? With a snack, of course." Kevin agreed, and they spent several hours watching TV and eating chili and chips. Being able to enjoy these moments was what Kevin loved most about working from home. The other was when he needed to prepare a project for the next day and could stop to do it at a moment's notice. Much like now, there were several knives he had been forging that required a night in the oven to normalize the steel. "I need to run out to the shop for a few minutes. Going to put some stuff in the oven for the night," Kevin informed Mary after pressing pause on the remote. Mary simply smiled at him and continued dipping another chip in chili. She was used to him running out to his shop, and it only irritated her when he paused a show with only a few minutes left, much like now. It wasn't something he intended to do, but happened so often it almost seemed deliberate. Walking out the front door, he thought about the show they were watching and realized he had done it to her again. "I'll hear about that when I get back," Kevin thought. He then focused on his task and what all needed to be placed in the oven. Walking into the main part of his shop, Kevin gathered everything that needed to be placed in the oven, arranged them with spaces between them in order to heat evenly. Then, with a few taps on the control panel, the oven was heating up. With that taken care of, he turned to head back into the house, but felt a strange pull to his finishing room. Images of his freshly restored katana flashed in his mind, almost as though it was calling to him. Now, instead of going back inside, he walked over and opened the door to his finishing room. As he walked in, his eyes focused on nothing but the katana laying on the bench. Walking over, he reached out and slid his fingers around the silky material. As his grip tightened around the handle, he raised it up, and everything around him changed. Suddenly, a scared man emerged from a bamboo forest and ran toward Kevin. "Shit, what is happening?" Kevin thought, raising the sword to defend himself from the approaching man. The approaching man stopped abruptly. Kevin could see fear and confusion on his face as he asked, "Who are you? Where am I?" "Shinigami, Shinigami," is all the man said, pointing in the direction he had come while running off in another direction. "The bringer of death?" A tall image emerged from the bamboo forest, wearing the same armor as the one in Kevin's latest hallucinations. Looking at the sword in his hands to protect himself, Kevin thought, "If this is a hallucination, why would I need to defend myself?" Still, he held the katana at the ready with the imposing demon-masked samurai approaching with his own sword in hand. "Where did the thief go?" the samurai asked from behind the mask. "Thief?" Kevin asked. "Where is he?" the samurai asked again, now only a matter of feet away. Pointing in the direction the man had ran, Kevin wondered if he had done the right thing. As he stared into the eyes behind the mask, he could see the samurai was studying him as well. Seeing a slight movement in the samurai's arm, Kevin knew an attack was coming. Tightening his grip on the handle of his katana, Kevin watched as the samurai's sword swung up at him from where it was held at the samurai's side. With a short step back, he listened to the deadly strike make a whooshing noise while slicing through the air inches from his body. "I don't think this is a tumor hallucination." Kevin readied himself for the next strike. He instinctively felt what was about to occur. Within a blink, he felt their swords make contact and emit a red glow with streaks emanating from where they should have. Unfazed by the strange event, the samurai countered only to find he had once again been blocked by his opponent, the same red light appearing each time. Kevin stared at the samurai as their blades met once again. The samurai stared at the marking carved upon the blade of his opponent's sword. Fighting stopped as both stood motionless, studying each other as red streaks of light emerged from between their swords. "That's my sword," the samurai said, halting his attack and taking a step back. Looking closer at the markings on the samurai's sword, Kevin quickly recognized the raised cherry blossom carved into the steel. "What the hell is going on?" "Who's the maker of your sword?" the samurai growled. "Sengo Ishioka, on third day of Rishun," Kevin replied. Gripping his handle, the samurai held his sword in the air and pressed on a small bamboo pin running through the handle. After it was free, he slapped down on his wrist near where his hand held the sword, freeing the handle. Holding onto the blade with one hand, he carefully removed the handle, revealing where Sengo had carved his name and date. "How is this? This sword was made for me. There is no other," the samurai said. Kevin looked at the samurai's sword, then back to his own. "Not sure. What is your name?" "I am Kevin." "Makoto," the samurai said, as he slightly bowed. "Why did that man call you Shinigami?" "Punishment for all crimes is death. Shinigami is the spirit of this sword, and it demands justice. He was granted this by a mountain demon after his family was killed. He fought to control me, but I kept him at bay until my love was slain. Ever since, Shinigami has been in control. Now is the first time in many years he has not been in control of me." Unexpectedly, Makoto turned and began walking off in the direction of the thief. "Wait, where am I? What are you—" "Kevin, Kevin." "Mary?" Kevin asked, hearing her voice and noticing everything around him had returned to normal. He was in his finishing room with Mary standing just inside the door. "It's getting late. Are you coming back in? I've been waiting to finish the last minute of the show for over an hour." With her confirming what he had done by pressing pause, Kevin said, "Be there in just a minute." Then he gave her a smile as she left to return inside. Over an hour? He thought after she had left, worried about his loss of time. After laying the katana back where it had been on the desk, Kevin turned and left the finishing room. He stopped to check the oven he had started with the knives, then walked over and turned out the lights. From the corner of his eye, he thought he saw movement outside through the window of his shop door. "Mary?" he asked as he neared the door, but heard no response. Through the glass, he saw a small pink cherry blossom fall and land on the ground just outside. Opening the door, he watched another, then another fall, resting in a line heading out the driveway. Looking from the line of cherry blossoms to the house and back to the blossoms, Kevin then looked to his truck. Turning around, he headed back into the finishing room to retrieve keys to his truck. Before he headed to his truck, his eyes locked on the katana. With a shrug of his shoulders, he said, "What could it hurt?" Seconds later, he was sitting in his truck, his katana lying in the seat next to him, following a trail of cherry blossoms into the night. Like a single-flake snowstorm, little pink blossoms fell upon the road within the range of his headlights, leaving a dotted line guiding him. Rather than thinking of how strange the event was, Kevin marveled at its beauty as each mile passed. Kevin was startled to discover they had led him back to the scene of the hit and run. Nevertheless, they did not stop there. They kept going, and so did he. Focused on each blossom, he kept driving through the parking lot. Reaching the far side of the lot, Kevin stopped in front of a bar where the blossom stopped just outside the bar's door. This must be the bar where the drunk driver had left, Kevin thought, as he pulled into a parking spot where he could watch the blossoms. Almost an hour had passed with no new blossoms to follow, as Kevin pondered why he would have come here. After a few more minutes, Kevin smacked the steering wheel in frustration. Mary is going to be pissed. He reached into his pocket for his cell when he realized that he had left it on his workbench. Damn it! Having had enough of whatever this was, Kevin started his truck and put it in reverse to back out of the parking spot. That's when he noticed blossoms falling behind a woman walking toward the bar. That Katie, Detective Riley's partner? Kevin asked himself. He put the truck back in park, once again curious as to what was going on. He noticed a man exiting the bar and, with him, a trail of blossoms. What the hell? That's the guy from the lineup. I told you to stay away from this place, Katie barked at the man exiting the bar. They have nothing on me. Hell, they couldn't even identify me in a lineup. The man laughed as Kevin quickly realized he was the drunk driver that had killed the woman. And you think calling me for a ride is a great idea? Should have done it before killing someone. Now get in the car. You can stay at my place. Yours is still being watched, Kevin heard Katie say to the man. Kevin suddenly noticed his hand was gripping the handle of the katana. He watched the two climb into Katie's car and begin to drive away. Blossoms fell behind them. Releasing the katana, Kevin put his truck in reverse, backed out of the parking spot, and then followed the blossoms once more. With traffic, he had lost sight of the car Katie was driving, but it was of no concern since the blossoms led the way. After following the blossoms to the far end of town, down back streets, and through an apartment complex, Kevin spotted the car with the two standing alongside it, now kissing. Before Kevin knew it, one of his hands was on the handle of his truck, and the other was on the katana. Calmly, he exited his truck with the katana by his side and neared the two kissing. The only thoughts he had were of justice. Nearing the car, Katie and Willard stood making out. He began to raise the sword as the detective noticed his approach. Drawing her gun, she shouted, "Put the weapon down!" Then she fired 2 shots. Kevin watched in disbelief as the bullets approached him at an incredibly slow rate of speed. With ease, he swung his katana, splitting them in half, and watched as the 2 halves went off in different directions. Seeing the fear on Katie and Willard's face, Kevin continued closing the distance between them until he was within striking distance. After what seemed nothing more than a twitching of his wrists, Kevin had severed Katie's hands from her arms. With her pistol gripped between her severed hands, it continued to fire as the finger twitched, spinning them about on the ground. Blood sprayed from Katie into Willard's face as he shoved her back and turned to run, only to feel a burning sensation running down his back. After stumbling a few feet, he fell to his knees just before a flower garden. Behind him, he could hear Katie screaming so loudly her voice crackled as she neared. Kevin rose his katana to deliver a death cut to Katie as she stumbled near the spot Willard had fallen to his knees. With a swift right-to-left movement, Katie's screams instantly stopped as her head tumbled to the ground, bouncing around like a basketball, stopping in front of Willard in the flower garden. The horrific sight of her severed head, looking up at him with mouth open and eyes still looking around, caused him to scream, but nothing came out but blood. With a swift thrust, Kevin slid the tip of the katana through the back of Willard's neck, twisted it, and jerked it to one side, slicing through muscle and jugular. In Japanese, he muttered, "I am Shinigami. All crime is punishable by death."